Hello. I haven't done a video like this in quite a while. Last time I did, I had the topics of snipers in a meta that left scars on me and everyone I can think of to this very day. Today, however, I don't want to talk about a class, but rather two specific characters who in my opinion don't receive the right treatment in terms of balance right now, which are Strix and Imani. Both characters I really enjoy playing and I invested a good amount of playtime into. I want to keep this video as short as I can, so let's get to it. As everyone knows at this point, Strix is hated across the board right now, which is the aftermath of him being on top of the meta a few months ago, thanks to the combination of this talent and his main weapons of choice, as well as this certain loadout card. This essentially allowed him an instant 2000 damage combo that wasn't very hard to perform and destroyed anyone who was in the front line and who dared to enter his private space, as well as being able to tank close to anything these people threw at him to defend themselves. Since then, the talent and his pistol were nerfed and the loadout card was reworked. Things have settled down a little bit, however here is where the problems already arise. EvilMojo's way of nerfing Strix at first was to rework his loadout card after having myself annoyed them with it over and over again, which resulted in a new loadout card that wasn't as broken, but equally as annoying. I was actually at the AOC summit the day they showed us the rework concept and my immediate reaction was, what in the world is this? Now the loadout card is a shell of its former self, which is good, but then again also just another loadout card, not worth picking anymore, damned to rot in the loadout section. The most recent changes for Strix we witnessed during the Darkness and Dragons update show, which are the following. Which leaves us where we are today. While these nerfs aren't inherently bad, I actually saw the ammo nerf coming, and won't really fix the issues Strix has as of right now. Strix pistol is really poopy to use these days, not useless, but certainly not useful either. It shouldn't be much of an issue though, since I can just take Crackshot to improve the damage and... ow. Right, never mind that then. One of the weirdest decisions EvilMojo has ever made was removing Crackshot over unauthorized use, and I cannot understand why to this day. The explanation we received when asking why Crackshot was to be removed instead of unauthorized use was, statistically, Crackshot has always been the better talent. While I can get behind the idea, I can't but go into myself and scream violently. The right move would have been to remove unauthorized use, since that was a talent with a horrible reputation and a talent no one liked to play against. Crackshot itself was the only skill requiring talent Strix had. Not saying it required a lot, but it required you to do something in the end. You actually had to hit your shots for your bonus damage and you didn't just get a pocket rocket for absolutely free. At this point, Strix has practically no viable talent anymore, and while the new Crackshot is interesting to use, it's ultimately not too fun to play and easily the worst talent in the game, if it wasn't for the reveal you receive due to how Mirror mechanics work. Looking at the balance decisions made in this patch, which were AOC contributions, so shout out to you guys, I really think you're doing God's work. I believe the way these changes are supposed to make Strix less frustrating to play against is the simple principle of, if he can't do it as often, it won't be that bad. And that's where I firmly disagree. While Strix's kit itself is kind of lackluster right now, his sniper rifle is easily one of the best weapons in the game, and that's where the problem lies. Strix had practically his entire power sucked out of his kit and talents, only to leave a sniper rifle behind. However, this can easily be fixed with two balance changes I am very sure would fix the majority of his balance issues, so hear me out. The best way to nerf Strix's sniper rifle is to nerf the fire rate. In-game it stated that he has a fire rate of 1 shot per second if you fire normally. I got curious and made some tests, which resulted in him having a fire rate of more like 0.95, so practically 1 second. His unscoped fire rate ended up being something around 0.65 to 0.7, which would make this bad boy fire faster than Cressy's crossbow, but obviously with horrible accuracy. His scope in time therefore has to be 0.25, giving him the 0.95 fire rate when scoping. Here's what should be changed. His fire rate when unscoped needs to go up to 1 second. This would give him the same fire rate he roughly has right now, just without scoping. His scope in time should also be slightly increased, from 0.25 to roughly 0.3 or 0.35. It would give Strix a final fire rate of 1.3 or 1.35. To give an example, that is exactly the same fire rate as Charlin's bow with recurve before it got buffed. This would not only lower Strix's DPS, but also keep his ability to 2-tap most of the characters and raise his difficulty, as you have to be a little more precise with your shots. This is not the only thing though. One other thing has to be done, and there are two options for this. Option number 1. His pistol damage would be buffed up to around something like 180 or 185, which would make it more reliable than right now, but not making it anywhere near as powerful as it was before. Option Number 2, the one I think would be the best one. Remove unauthorized use and re-add Crackshot under the name unauthorized use. Doing the math on this, it would cost the pistol to deal 198 damage after hitting someone with the sniper rifle, which is close to the 220 it had before, but is far away from the damage it did before. Something I think should also be done is nerfing the bonus damage duration. Crackshot's duration of bonus damage was 4 seconds. I will reduce that to 2.5 seconds instead. This way you would still have enough time to defend yourself against all the stray kittens, edgelords and candy store owners that find massive pleasure in ruining your day, but also won't make you able to just easily and casually melt any frontline that happen to enter your private zone. This, along with the already nerfed pistol, would make Crackshot a lot less strong, but still give you a good option to use if you want to have a more powerful pistol. There was also the rough idea I had way back, I would still like to try out in any way, which is changing Strix's sniper rifle into a projectile weapon with bullet drop, similar to sniper rifles you can find in Battle Royale games like Fortnite, Warzone, but also games like the Battlefield series. This would make Strix a lot more interesting to play, while also ultimately increasing its difficulty by a lot. Obviously this depends on how big the projectile would be, if he could still headshot, and how steep the gravitational drop is. But in the end, it's something I would really like to try out, but it will most likely never happen, since it would require a serious rework EvoMojo likely can't just pull out of their sleeves yet. I really hope EvoMojo sees where I'm coming from with this. Of course, I could be completely wrong, and this could all be horrible, but like I said many times before, I have no way of trying this out, so I will never truly know. So I'm just going to stay with these ideas, and I am certain these changes will not only benefit Strix as a character, but also all the people that hate to play against him. Now, let's get to a character many people probably won't even know I really like playing, which is Imani. Ever since Imani was shown, I fell in love with her kit and the ideas behind her. A elemental stand-switching mage with a huge dragon was something I never thought I needed in my life until that day. And it turned out, it was too good to be true. Imani ended up being a character with a stance switch ability that was never used, since the stances weren't designed with the thought of letting the player switch between the stances when the situation calls for it, but rather designed as a character with 2 stances, so a player can always use stance 1 or stance 2 if they just so happen to dislike stance 2 or 1. This is not a joke. Not only that, the player would always be highly disencouraged to even switch the stances in the first place, due to the switching ability having a fat 10-second cooldown slapped to its forehead. The main weapon attacks of both stances aren't that different either. One is just a charge attack, but in the end both have no damage fall off, and at this point are almost the same attack speed. It was different when Imani was released, since a fireball had a 1.6 second wind-up time, which since has been reduced to 1.1 seconds. Her icicles have a attack speed of 0.8, which back then was quite noticeable, but today it's barely noticeable at all. When Imani was released, her ice stance was by far the best one. High DPS, weapon played very similar to Cassie's crossbow, which encouraged a lot of players to try her out, since Cassie is a staple character of the game. This, along with a 2-second root that had an 800 damage burst, gave Imani an ability and main attack combo that was practically unescapable and just annoying to play against. Ever since the root has been nerfed and the loadout card was reworked, and this combo is practically dead now. Before that though, EvoMojo did try to make her fire stance more interesting by reducing the wind-up time for her fireballs like mentioned before, and after once again having me annoy them with it, adding base movement speed to her Inferno Cannon as well as reducing the cooldown of her stance switch to 6 seconds. Well, this all seemed very nice, and after EvoMojo surprised everyone, including me, with buffing Imani's Frostfire Glide to be more agile and even faster at base, I couldn't but feel like there was something still wrong and missing with Imani. So I digged into her again, played with her, talked with other people who are Imani mains, which are very rare these days, might I say, and I came to a conclusion. While Imani looks very cool, is very interesting and has fun abilities, her kit doesn't really have synergy with itself. I started comparing her to the other 2 stance switch characters we have in Paladins, being Strix and Koga, and yes, even though they just switch weapons, in the end it's basically a stance switch, I felt like I found the answer. Remember when I said that Imani wasn't originally designed as a character to switch stances when the situation is given, but rather someone with just 2 playstyles or 2 character kits built in one, with a higher chance someone would enjoy play her by only playing stance 1 and never touching stance 2? That's where the problem lies, and if this is never changed, Imani will never be a light character. If you look at the weapons of Strix and Koga, you realize that both have weapons for longer distance and shorter distance, while also having weapons that fire slow and hit hard, and fire fast and hit, well, light. Each obviously having the purpose of being useful in certain situations. While this is somewhat given in Imani's case, it's nowhere near the same. The way I see it is, Imani's fire stance is clearly a long to medium range stance. Her fireballs do massive damage, have a rather long wind-up time, and no damage fall off, while Inferno Cannon has a range limit and can easily serve as a panic button if someone gets too close too fast, not allowing to switch to the ice stance in time. Said ice stance seems more like it could serve as a short to medium range stance. Her icicles are faster and require no wind-up, and the Frostbomb can serve as a tool to keep an attacker on bay, or just to disrupt their movement for you to take down. While this could definitely work out very well, There is the core issue of why would I even switch in the first place if one stance will always be better than the other one no matter the situation. There is a very easy fix for this issue by simply changing Imani's icicles in a way that they are fun to use and serve the exact purpose I just mentioned. This is how I would do it. Currently, the attack speed of her icicles is 0.8. This should be changed to something like 0.5, 0.45 or even 0.4. As well as that, her icicles should also have damage falloff, so you are not able to just spam them at longer ranges, where the damage falloff should roughly start at like 60 feet and goes up to like 100 feet, with the damage going down to 90% on max range. Along with that, her icicle damage should also be nerfed accordingly, to something like 475, 460, 450, something like that. And finally, I would also along with that switch around the mana requirements, having to hit 8 icicles for the bonus one and 4 fireballs for the bonus fireball. Personally, I would like to change the mana system as well, since just having a bonus attack for more bursts is mighty boring. However, I want to keep it simple for now, so I'm only going to focus on the icicle changes. These changes would benefit Imani a lot and would give her a lot more depth to play with. It would actually make the player switch between the stances when the situation is calling for it, just like with Strix and Koga. One concern I have heard with this idea, that some people just don't like one of the stances and don't want to be forced to switch between them. While I can see this problem, I have to say I am sure that a lot of people who might dislike the ice stance now would possibly enjoy it once these changes were made. And with certain loadouts, I am also quite certain that people that prefer the one stance playstyle can still use it might just not be as viable anymore as before. Without trying to sound mean here, the recent buffs announced during the Darkness and Dragons patch preview show for Imani are quite disappointing. I actually thought it was an April Fool's joke, but sadly these were actually serious buffs. 2 seconds off of her Frostbomb and Inferno Cannon won't change a single thing. It still leaves her clunky and boring to play with this one stance playstyle. My changes are aimed to make her more engaging to play and allow her to utilize all her abilities she has available. Obviously, I haven't even mentioned yet that the whole idea is held back by the fact that her stance switch has a 6-second cooldown, which really kind of puts a nail through all of this. However, Evil Mojo did change her loadout card, reducing the stance switch cooldown to be able to take away 5 seconds off of it, actually leaving it at 1 second. Even though I would prefer if we had this at base, at least having the option to reduce the cooldown to 1 second allows all of this to work in the first place. It would require 5 loadout card points, but you know what, that is the price that I'm going to take. Overall, if these icicle changes were to be made, I am very sure that Imani overall will be more played and will be better in general. I do also think it's going to make her harder to play, but I don't think that's going to be an issue, but rather actually makes her more fun and engaging, more interesting. And that's going to be it for today. I am praying to Furia that these changes will happen one day, since I am sure that these are the only ways to actually improve and fix up these characters. But well, like I just said, all that can be done right now is praying and hoping. And if any of the Evil Mojo people happen to see this, please remember, this is not a personal attack towards any of you. I think you guys are doing a great job, and you do whatever you can given the current situation. I just want to help you guys out. Even though my AOC time is over, I still care about the game and I still want to help improve the game. Even if it's only for a few characters, I'm still trying to do what I can. Well, with that being said, have a nice day everyone, stay safe, wash your hands, and I'll see you next time.